Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, guess what? This week, our daughter Megan gets married.
We're so excited. You want your daughter, your son, to marry well. Trust me, because they're also marrying into a family, which means you're joining in with that family in a way too.
So we are sharing today thoughts, reflections that I think no one has really shared anywhere before. And so we're giving some tips, some advice on things that we've learned along the way. And here's just a little glimpse into it. Personal reflections on things that God is teaching me as a mom in letting go, letting her grow into this next journey and season in her life, as well as how to protect those new in-law relationships and prepare your kid for marriage. So today's episode is fire. We know you're going to be encouraged.
And you can get all show notes at courageousparenting.com, the full ministry, becourageousministry.org, which is where the infamous parenting mentor program is, and all the courses, her book, and coffee, and all the things. Everything you do, whether it's 5-star review or purchasing something or donation, helps us do this to impact 10 million legacies, which is the mission. Thanks so much and enjoy the show. All right, we're launching our third kid, and it's so exciting. I mean, it's awesome. And it's personal.
Yeah.
And we want to give you some encouragements, even if you just have littles right now, middles, or you're approaching this season, or you've already done it but want to learn so you can train up your grandkids. This is an important topic. I don't know how many people are talking about, but I think it's very important.
Okay, this is like deeply personal. I just think this is deeply personal. I think a lot of people don't talk about the topics like, what are your personal feelings when you're launching your children? What have you learned? What advice do you have for other people who are getting close to that season where they're launching kids into the real world, either into marriage or into like getting their own place and having their own job and building their life? I wish that there were people who talk to us about this.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have really had these conversations with people very much.
It's so important. We're so excited.
Yeah.
Wow. Megan's getting married to a wonderful man, and they're so well suited for each other. He's so godly, spiritually leading, so many wonderful things.
Which you guys, if you listen to the last 2 podcasts, you heard an interview with them. We talked about their engagement and their pursuing one another's story in the 2 episodes. So that was really cool. But I do want to say, like, this is a sweet, sweet time. So Isaac, we often talk about in the podcast episode to try to get parents to really engage and be intentional in the season that they're in by saying, hey, remember, your kids are only going to spend the first 20% of their life living in your home. That's when you have the most influence in their life, right?
Yeah.
And so here's our third. She is going to be 21 in December, so in a couple months, and she's getting married. So we're actually launching her into marriage. I think that some people can launch their kids into a career and building a life, not necessarily into marriage first, right? Yeah. But for her story is that she's launching into marriage. So we're going to talk about like things that we've been trying to prepare our hearts for, but also what have we prepared her for, right?
Yeah.
And in that process, I think that one of the things that I get a lot of questions about, and I have been getting these questions for the last 4 years because Austin got married in 2021, is how do you know they're ready, right? How do you feel? Do you feel like worried that they're not ready?
I don't at all. I am so excited. I think Megan is so ready, so equipped, so capable, godly, confident, understands what the Bible says about marriage and is embracing it, and has relationships at home that are strong and good and open communication with us. I mean, I think it's indicative of when you are parenting well, when you're building the right relationship with your children, it can be just this wonderful thing. I just can't wait. I'm pumped.
We want to invite you to a free workshop called Cultivating an Unshakable Family, where we talk about 4 things that you need to do differently in this uncertain world.
Christian rhythms that are normal aren't working. And so there's 4 things that are vital. And some of the things we're going to talk about are 4 nurture needs of the heart.
Parenting communication cycle.
Discipline with discipleship.
And why Christian parenting is largely failing today.
You're also going to get a free biblical parenting ebook that has a marriage assessment in it about your parenting so you can see where each other are at. Completely free. And you can go to the show notes at courageousparenting.com to find it.
We're super excited for them. I think it is easier to like be excited for them to step into this new season of life and like launch. Like there's for sure an equal, we're excited for her. Like there's no, oh, you're not ready. No, it's actually, and it's not about when I say, oh, you're not ready. I think that a lot of times people think of readiness as they have to have it all together. And I think of readiness as they're ready for the next season and journey in their life where they're going to learn a lot. And that's exciting. And I think that for us, it's easy to be like supportive of them going out into this next season of their life and saying I do and building a life together because we see where they're at in their walk with God.
Yeah.
And that's actually the only thing that matters.
That is everything.
Yeah.
But you know, there is some preparing of hearts on our side.
Yeah.
I know that's really something you've been doing is kind of thinking through. I mean, you've been home with Megan every day, you know?
For her whole life.
For her whole life. I mean, she's been gone sometimes, but doing trips or things.
Or she's
but overall, you've spent the most time with her. And I've spent a lot of amazing time with her
quantity of
too.
hours, yeah.
But, you know, it's going to be different.
When you homeschool and your kids are with you every day during their 12 years of education and before that, you definitely
So how are you preparing your mama heart?
have an investment that is, it's a good question. I think that for myself, this time it's a little bit different than like when Kelsey moved out because I still had Megan at home. And so there was still another girl in the family. And if you guys have followed our family for any amount of time, you know we have 7 sons and 2 daughters. And so this is our second daughter getting married. So I'm going to be now at home with 7 guys.
Yeah.
6 sons and my husband. So I'm going to be the only female in a house full of testosterone. So I think that's actually been something that I've legitimately thought about. And I've kind of, I'm going to say the word mourned a little bit because when the girls were both living at home and this hasn't happened for a while, even with Megan, because she's been so busy getting ready for the wedding and spending a lot of time with Sean. And it makes sense, right? But like even having a once in a while chick flick night where we would like get in mom's bed and we'd have our popcorn and we'd have our tissues and we'd laugh and we'd cry and we'd watch a movie or whatever. Like that hasn't happened in a really long time. And it's been Megan and I have done that, you know, in the last year, but I'm starting to realize like that might be gone.
Door is closing. New doors are opening.
New doors are opening.
More grandchildren.
Just the reality. And I do think that for the moms of, well, it doesn't matter if you have a small or big family, but I have been raising my daughters to be prepared to be wives and moms in the sense of like I've expected more out of them in the kitchen. Excuse me. Meaning like I've taught them more of cooking, right? The boys know how to cook certain things, but for sure I spent more time in the kitchen making sure the girls know how to prepare lots of different types of things. And it's been a fun thing in the past and they've loved it. And so that was something that we primarily did a lot together, which actually provided help for me in preparing food for a large family. So now that both of the girls are going to be gone, I'm kind of like, it's on me, actually, much more. I don't expect the boys to necessarily contribute a meal a week in helping the family and stuff like that.
Although we might do some of that. We might.
We'll see.
We've talked about it.
Yeah, we'll see. So there's like those kinds of realizations I think are so different because this is like the last daughter moving out. And so... I'm excited for this next season. It's just I'm starting to realize like this is different. This is very different. So there's that. But then I think that one of the sweet parts has been the deep conversations about totally different topics that I haven't had with Megan until now, because now it's like, you know, a week away from getting married. And, you know, even 2 months ago, it was like she was engaged and it was like, okay, I want to be intentional. So I said, hey, what do you think about us meeting together on, let's try a weekly basis where we can just get together and have a breakfast or a lunch or something, spend time together, and you can ask me anything and I'll come prepared, ready to teach you some things about marriage that maybe we haven't talked about before. And she was like, yes, let's do it. And so I love that she had that like enthusiastic perspective. And we started doing that. And then a couple weeks into that, I realized, you know what? The topics that I'm choosing, like I'm literally praying about it and I'm picking scripture that I want to go over with her to talk about some of the most important aspects of like being prepared for marriage. And I bet there's a lot of moms out there that would really benefit from knowing what these conversations are for their marriage, but also for them to prepare their daughters. So I started teaching on those in our app about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, every Saturday. I've gone in and taught a little Bible study or taught on a topic that I covered with her in regards to getting ready for marriage. And so that's been really fun. We've covered topics like communication and misunderstandings in marriage and how to deal with that. How God made you and your spouse differently. And then I would like ask her questions about like things that she's noticed about their differences and how they can become misunderstandings later, and just being on guard, not letting Satan have a foothold. We've talked about gender roles, because that's an important thing. Like, and it wasn't me saying, hey, this is how your dad and I have done it. You need to do it this way. It was more like, have you had this conversation with Sean yet? Like, have you guys talked about what some of these jurisdictions are? And this is how you know how dad and I have done this, but you guys are going to have to figure out your own way. Talked about finances, talked about frugality, budgeting. And then we talked about transparency and gossip was one topic. And then another was on intimacy. So we've covered quite a lot of topics, just her and I talking together, but also in the app. So if that's something that you want a little sneak peek into, you can go find the Be Courageous app in the App Store, right,
Yeah.
Isaac? Yeah. And they're in the Courageous Mom group, because every Saturday at 10, I'm in there doing a 1 hour teaching and Q&A. So that's been kind of fun. But I would say that on the topic of all of those, there's one specific topic that I think really, I think that the Lord's been teaching me something that I think would be really powerful advice for all families. And I think it's something that I wish people would have talked to us about. And that is the topic of transparency and gossip, and just like having good relationships with the other in-laws is important, and being transparent with one another and building a relationship with one another is really special. But I even had this conversation with Megan, and then I taught on it in the app, that it's really important that the couple that's getting married has the perspective of protecting family relationships by being careful not to gossip. And when you say the word gossip, it sounds very malicious. It sounds very slanderous. But I think that even when someone doesn't have malicious intent, gossip can accidentally happen, even with good intentions, right? But it's really important that as the individual couple, like if Isaac and I, we've been really careful to protect, like, I don't talk to my mom about things that we have dealt with your parents, and we don't talk to your parents about things that we have dealt with my parents.
No, we never did.
We made it was like this pact that you and I had to protect their reputation of one another by not involving them in that and seeking wise counsel elsewhere. And so that was actually a conversation that I had with Megan. It was a teaching that I did in the app, where we went over a lot of different verses on speech. And I think that it's super, super important that there is not a boundary that is crossed where, like, if there was conflict between Megan and I, for example, and she was to go and talk to Sean's mom, it would change Sean's mom's perspective of me, and vice versa. And so, like, having that boundary and that conversation of, like, it is now your job to protect those relationships. And it's also my job to hold you accountable. And if you start coming to me with a problem with the mother-in-law or with the father-in-law or with something, I should go, you know what? I think Matthew 18 says you need to go talk directly to them.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I just think it's that, like, being biblical as biblical family, you literally do not listen to it for the sake of protecting the relationship. And
that's good, because you want to have great relationships all throughout family. And the kids that are getting married have massive influence over that by how they talk about things, especially in the beginning, because here's the parents on both sides,
right?
Best interest, wanting to get to know each other and so forth. But if they start hearing from, the kids, different things from that are one-sided, and when there's conflict or something like that, that could really negatively steer viewpoints and hurt relationships and these kinds of things.
And even give, like, it could influence wrong advice given to the kids, right? Like once there's grandkids involved or whatever. And so I think that it's I think that there's this element of like seek wise counsel, but be really careful about who you're getting advice from, which you say to guys all the time, right?
Yeah.
Be careful who you take advice from and making sure that there's fruit that's actually there before you're getting advice from them.
But you do want your kids to come to you still and get advice.
You do, but I also think that there's an element of like wisdom that needs to be taken in protecting, because I have seen more times than not, and guys, this actually comes, I just have to say this is not just something that like I talked to Megan about. It was first and primarily motivated because of all of the questions that we've gotten in the last 6.5 years through the Parenting Mentor Program. Every time we do the Parenting Mentor Program, we do Q&A time. That's like 30 minutes Q&A time in our sessions and our live sessions in the app with the group. And every time someone asks about boundaries with in-laws, like every single time.
Yeah.
And so we legitimately have an entire like advice that we give people in regards to how to have that communication with the in-laws, how to talk, just evaluation, where to seek wisdom from, what's wise, what's not wise. And because we give this conversation over and over again, it's like, this is actually another piece of advice that's super important for a couple that is just starting out, is like, you guys have to, and it's not even about the in-laws, it's also about the siblings. Like if you gossip to your parents about a brother-in-law, for example, and you say, oh yeah, he's just being, I don't know, he's dating this girl and it's totally not going to work out, blah, 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 blah. Like that literally. And then you don't come back and defend his character later, or her character, then the in-laws are going to potentially have a perspective or reputation in their mind of that specific brother-in-law or sister-in-law. And so then it literally ruins their reputation for the other people. And it's not their fault. It's literally because they listened. And they only listen to one part of it, right? Whereas that person might just be amazing and awesome, but one of you is like sharing a concern one time, but then not coming back and sharing how it resolved or whatever it is. And so I think that this is a really important conversation just for all family members for all time. It's like, don't gossip and be careful about what you say, because it affects how people view one another. Right?
Yeah.
And so I would say that that's like a foundational thing during the engagement process that should be a conversation with the new couple of like, hey, we want to have great relationships with the other family. And so one of the best ways you guys can help with that, and we're going to help with that too, is to not talk about each other. Like if you have a problem with them, go straight to them. If you have a problem with us, you've got to come straight to us.
I think that's such sound advice, and it sets things up right from the beginning in a wise way. And man,
and
so looking
biblical.
forward to great relationships.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I just think that and I'm thankful, I just want to say, because we're in this process of our daughter getting married, I'm just really thankful right now because we have good relationships with everyone. But it's been something that like we set up, like I had this conversation weeks ago where it was like, okay, just so you know, this is a really important boundary that I think we need to like just verbally say, yes, we're going to try to do this. You know what I mean? Just so there's like going forward, there's just like, it's clean.
Hey, everybody, we're in a learning process here. This is all new stuff. Yes, we have 2 other kids that got married, but it's all relatively recent in the last
4 years.
4 years
Yeah.
that all of this has happened. So you're coming along the journey as we learn things and are able to do things better and better the more we experience them. So I hope it's helpful to you as we're talking about this.
Yeah. So I think that there's like, if you have the heart of like wanting to have healthy family relationships, it's that you don't talk about the family to the family. Mm-hmm. Like that's something that we've been really careful with our kids too, is like if there's something that another kid will come to us for advice on, we don't talk about that with the rest of the family, because we want the siblings to respect their older siblings and vice versa. And so it's like, it's just being respectful all around. But I would say that like the other things that we're kind of learning in this process, because the wedding's coming up here really soon, I would say that this is like an opportunity where you can have a stressful experience or you can have a stressless, enjoyable experience, right?
Which one do you want? Stressful?
Well, nobody
or enjoyable?
No one wants a stressful experience. But I will say that like I think that every mom wants it to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
But that there can be circumstances or even certain personalities that can make things more stressful. right?
Communicating a lot is key. Everybody on the same page, some organization about it, just really good communication on paper and verbally is good as a wedding's being prepared.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with money and things like that, it's just really important to have good communication. I would say too that, this is something that we are learning along the lines. It's a little bit different this time because traditionally what you expect is, and what you prepare for is that the parents of the bride are going to pay for the wedding, right? Like that is the traditional, and then the parents of the groom pay for the rehearsal and rehearsal dinner. That's typically, and the honeymoon, right? And so it's like typically like those are the different jurisdictions. We've been very blessed in this situation that the two families are coming together to bless the children. And so it's kind of a little less traditional in that sense, that everybody is like all hands on deck with everything, right? And there's even like homemade stuff. And it was really fun to be able to do the bridal shower with the mother of the groom. She was super, super helpful, and we kind of divvied up what we're in charge of, and that made it go a lot smoother. But I would say that in general, like having good expectations ahead of time and being able to communicate makes things go easier. Looking for a math curriculum that actually works? Meet CTC Math. It's a full K through 12 curriculum that's flexible, effective, and designed to make sense. The secret? Short, engaging video lessons that break down tricky concepts into easy to understand steps. Whether you're homeschooling or just need a supplement, CTC Math fits your routine, not the other way around. And with 24/7 access to all lessons from all grades, your kids can learn anytime and anywhere. Ready to take the stress out of math? Visit ctcmath.com and start your free trial today. That's ctcmath.com. Confidence in math that starts here. Hey guys, let's talk about motherhood for a second. It is so easy to be thankful for motherhood when your kiddo gives you a hug or gives you a best mom ever birthday card, right? But what about when you're scrubbing crayon marks off the wall or in the middle of a toddler meltdown in the grocery store? I get it. I have 9 kids myself, and my friend Abby, who has 10 children, has just come out with her latest book, You Bet Your Stretch Marks. She is the author of M.is.for.mama, and hard is not the same thing as bad, but she's back with this new book that helps us to keep our eyes set on Jesus. Is motherhood hard? You bet. But is it worth it? You bet your stretch marks. So you can find this book available now wherever books are sold, or go to M.is.for.mama to learn more.
Yeah, and it's been so good, just communication, having a meeting. We had this wedding budget meeting with his parents, and it went so well. And we were going in expecting to pay for the traditional path of things, but they just really felt like they wanted to contribute a little bit more, and they wanted to also be a team in preparing it. And they really wanted that. They wanted to be part of it. And so we're like, let's go. Let's be a team. Let's be a team.
We're going to be family.
Let's
so
do
why
this
not?
together, especially with a 2-month engagement, which we're all for. But what also comes with a short engagement, well, that's really good for a lot of purity reasons, things like that. The challenge is like getting it done. Getting it done in a short period of time.
And I would say it's actually been closer to 3-month engagement, because they were engaged on July 11th and they're getting married September 27th.
So the team effort has been amazing.
But it's still a lot of work to have a bridal shower and a rehearsal dinner, wedding, all in 11 weeks. That's a lot. Anyway, but it's happening. God's going before us, and there are times when we all need to be reminded of that at different times, right? Where it's like, hey, it's okay. Like the most important thing is actually their marriage. And so that's something that I have to keep preaching to myself. There are certain things that I have to preach to myself over and over again, like worry doesn't change anything. So don't worry, right? Instead, just do the next thing. Get the next thing checked off the list. I tend to be very good at preparing things. And so I have been purposefully trying to step back and let the bride and the groom do as much as they can, and then step in and remind them, hey, we have like this many days. Have you done this? And so that can add a different element. I think it's being handled just fine. But I think one thing, if I was to do this differently, because that's what you're all wishing you heard, is that having a wedding or event coordinator earlier on in the process would have been more helpful. Probably.
Oh, probably.
You know what I mean? Because then I'm not the point person that's saying, hey, have you gotten this and this and this and this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But instead, and we do have someone we absolutely love. It's actually a neighbor, someone that goes to church with us. It's going to help with coordinating the event, and they're going to be at the rehearsal and making sure everybody's in the right place and that kind of stuff. Because I was like, if we don't have a person, it's going to default to a strong personality who knows everybody, and I don't want to do that. And so, and I would say that for most moms and future mother-in-laws, because we're all future mother-in-laws. If you have kids, you're a potential future mother-in-law one day, just putting that out there. You don't want to be put into a position like that because clearly the bride can't do it. And so it becomes this issue potentially because somebody has to have a strong enough personality to do that.
What are some things you're thankful in hindsight now that you really instilled in Megan in her life?
Well, I think that her love for wanting to be a homemaker, like it's been really sweet to see, like God provided a really great little house. It's just 2 minutes away from the church. So they're going to be maybe 11 minutes from us, which is crazy because we live in this really small town in the mountains of Idaho. And we've kind of prepared ourselves that once the kids launch, like realistically, it's too hard for them to buy acreage. It's too expensive out here, right?
At first.
I mean, God can provide in amazing ways. And, sometimes different people have different financial situations, but we haven't expected that is my point. Like we've prepared our hearts that our kids might have to live in the Treasure Valley for a few years before they can afford to come out here if they want to, right? Yeah. And so I'm really thankful that we're within like an hour's drive or less from all of our kids and grandkids so far. That's super blessing. But I also think that that like just the fact that they're there is totally a God thing. And so it's been fun to see them fixing up the house to get it ready for when they're able to be there together. And Sean moved in already and he's painting and they're getting it ready. And it's just really sweet to see her, like she's been raised to want to be a homemaker.
Yeah.
And so like she really is having fun. Like, what kind of towels are the best towels, Mom? And like, those are the fun kinds of questions I love hearing, where it's like, well, actually, that's not my forte. Why don't you go ask Sean's mom? Or, like we go, like there are times where as a mom, you can give opportunity to say, hey, I acknowledge that I'm not going to have the answers to everything. So I'll give you my favorite, but you should also ask her. And then it kind of opens up that opportunity for them to develop a relationship, which is the thing that I think is, for me, that's been my conversation. It's like, oh, I don't know. Have you asked, Kelly? And
how is it sharing mom life with a new mom?
That's not easy. I would say that that's the one thing that I think wasn't on my radar, like on a personal heart preparation level. You have these like sweet conversations and deep conversations about things you've not had with. That's really great. But then there's also like, you start to realize that there's another woman starting to speak into your daughter's life. And that is like, I'll be honest, that's kind of hard. It's hard because you have wanted to be that for her whole life. And you have primarily been that for their whole life. And then all of a sudden there's someone else that's speaking into their life, right? And you're like, ow. But I love her, and we're so like-minded on so many levels that it's not like there's anything. Yeah,
there's no issue. It's just that you're preparing your heart for that. Yes, they're leaving and cleaving to each other, but also brings in other parents.
Right. There's another mom. Yeah. Like it's kind of like, I've never been a part of a blended family. We've been married for 26 years. And so I've always been the only mom, right? And so some people experience where there's blended families and there's two moms and there's two dads and they have to work that out. And they already like their heart's a little bit prepared already in a sense because they've had to share their kids.
Yeah.
But I have not experienced that. And so other than with my other two kids that are married, obviously. And so I feel like every time, even though I've already had two kids get married, I'm learning it again. And this time I'm like actually seeing what it is that I'm learning.
Here's a tip for everybody. If you're not in this season yet, is really be diligent about raising up your kids in biblical truth.
Yeah.
Make sure they are growing in the Lord and love the Lord. And you can't save your kids, but you can do a lot to disciple them at home. Don't delegate that just to your church. Church is extra. You're the main thing. You've got to pour in because you're hopeful that they're growing strong in the Lord, so that they then will attract only somebody that has also been growing strong in the Lord. But if they have not been, and they're just kind of a lukewarm Christian, what are they also going to attract? And then that might attract some kind of different experience than we are experiencing.
You mean like a different kind of
family
legacy that's coming with them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I do think it's important. We're going to talk more about this in the next podcast, where we talk about being in what we're pursuing, aspiring to be the kind of in-laws that we're aspiring to be. So you got to listen to next week's podcast right after Megan is married. We're going to share about that. But I do think that there is this element of like acknowledging that for moms with sons, you raise them and you're the only woman speaking into their life, actually. You and any sisters and grandmas, right? It's like you're the main thing. And there's a special relationship between a mom and a son. With daughters, it's different because they'll have girlfriends and they'll have the moms of their girlfriends and like your friends who are girls, and they'll sit and they'll talk to them, right? Like as they're raised mainly around girls, just like how boys are mainly raised around boys, right? And so not that they're not around girls, but you get what I'm saying. They're not sitting and going, so Mrs. Johnson, how you doing today? And going into deep conversations. Like boys don't do that, but a girl probably would if she's hanging out with her friends and that's their mom. You know what I mean? And so there's this element of like, really wanting to be in like-minded community so that your kids can discern when they're not getting like-minded biblical wisdom.
Yeah.
So that they are like, wait, this isn't what all of the like-minded people I've been around would say. This doesn't seem right. And then they can discern.
Such an important point, because your children, it really helps when validation happens from other people in life with them as you're raising them. But if you're not in a biblically minded community, as much as they love and respect you and so forth, if what they're getting from everybody outside of your home is
like
different,
worldly advice
and it's within the church and things like that, that is going to be detrimental. You need people that are backing up what you're doing at home around you. So you have to be really careful who you're running the race with, because they're going to want to marry somebody that is very like-minded to them and their beliefs, but also they're going to be looking for fruit around that person. And that's going to help them probably make that decision too.
It's really interesting. There's a book by, I think it was by Nancy Lee DeMoss that she either forwarded or she wrote. It was about a biblical wedding. And I gave it to my first daughter when she was engaged. And I need to find another one. Well, there's probably not enough time for Megan to read it because it's just been such a fast engagement. Yeah. But there was one part in there where it was literally going through how things were done in the biblical ancient times when there was a betrothal, right? And then there would be a dowry that was given, and then the man that was going to marry the daughter would then go back and prepare. He would literally prepare and build a home for them to live in. And until that was done, they weren't married. And so sometimes it would be a year or two before they were actually married, because he was preparing a home for them to live in. And that was part of his like manhood. Like, you're not ready until you're ready to provide and protect for the daughter. Like, so there's going from a covering of provision and care to a covering of provision and care. And it was like the sign of like a boy has now become a man, actually, that he's ready to potentially be a husband. And so there was this like very clear, methodical like expectation within the culture back then of how things would happen. And it's just not that way, especially in American culture, to where there's this like expectation and this knowledge of what's going to happen. And so it's very different when you're raising sons, because we've actually raised them to understand that why would you date someone for the purpose of marriage if you are not able to financially provide for the two of you? And so we've even had this conversation and shared briefly about these conversations with our sons recently. They have that same standard. Not that we have like said, hey, you're not ready. Like, we're not having that conversation with them, but they've had that conversation with us where they're like, no. Like, I've heard how expensive girls are, and I don't want to waste my money. I want to be prepared when I meet my wife. And like, they're saving and they have that mentality. And I am so thankful for that, because I think that their launch is healthier when they have that confidence as a guy of like, I can do this. I can do this, because in scripture, in Matthew 19, verse 4, it says, he answered, have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, leave them, and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. And then it says, what therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. And it's interesting because there is so many family dynamics that happen in this like launching into marriage. But when you understand what God's plan is for a couple, you see that there is a leaving and a cleaving, that a man has to be ready to leave his mother and father and lead and provide and those kinds of things. And so for us, like with our, giving our daughters hands over, that's something we look for is like, are you a man? Are you able to do these things on your own in a sense? But also, is there a humility that's there, knowing that you don't have to do it all alone? Like God's word says, to seek wise counsel. And that there can be, when you come from a biblical family, there can be a strength in family helping one another as long as there is not a dependency or a codependency on helping one another. Right. Yeah. And we're going to talk more about that in next week's podcast. But I think that this process is easier when you see a young man who has not been foolish in the last while, right? But he's had his mind set on God. And Sean shared that testimony in last week's podcast, set his heart on God and God's plan for his life. And he wasn't distracted by dating a bunch of girls and spending money frivolously, but instead he was saving, right? And so like when you see and you hear those kinds of things, it's easier to have a trust that, hey, they're going to figure it out. There might be a little bumps in figuring it out along the way, but they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, it's exciting. And it's been amazing, raising Megan, and we love her so dearly. I think back to the date nights and with Dad and the fun times and all the things we've done as a family, the RV trips around the country, all the different things that we've all done together with her. And now it's, also I think of, making sure she gets home and is safe every night when she's going swing dancing with her friends, and coming over the mountain at night.
So you're going to get more sleep.
And these kinds of things, I'm going to be like, okay, she's being protected by a great man that I trust. And it's a great feeling to be passing that baton over to another trustworthy man that we love and we're excited about. And so that's the way it should be. And, you want to raise them up to where they desire the biblical way, where they desire a fruitful way, where they are looking for the right things in the other person. And it makes all of this so enjoyable, so wonderful. This is the way it should be. We're experiencing it. We want you to experience it. So hopefully some of these lessons will be helpful to you in your journey.
Yeah. So I think that, if you are a person that likes hearing stories of people who are like a season ahead of you, right? I think that two things that I would encourage people to do, and I'll repeat these in next week's podcast too, is one, pray for your heart to be ready for your daughters and your sons to have another woman's voice in their ear, because they're going to. When you marry someone, yes, there's a leaving and cleaving that happens, but you're also marrying into a family. And that's something to rejoice in. But at the same time, like you have to take a step back and be willing to share that megaphone, if you will, or that microphone in your child's ear, because you're not the only one that's speaking into their ear anymore as mom and dad. There's another mom and dad. And if there's a blended family situation, sometimes there's two moms and dads. And so like preparing your heart ahead of time and praying for God to let you take a step back and to be willing to share that and to say, hey, have you thought of asking them that? This is what I would do, but have you asked them too? And, getting multiple wisdom is actually a benefit to a young couple. So be praying specifically. My other piece of advice is to be praying specifically for the mother of your son in love, and be praying for her heart to be okay with him having another mom in his life and another dad in his life, and be praying that they are walking biblically and that they're raising them to love the Lord and that they're raising them to view marriage in a biblical kind of way. And I think that those prayers, God hears those prayers, and there is no prayer that is wasted. And I know that for myself, having been praying for Sean since Megan was a baby, but also praying for his mom. It has benefited a fruit that is really only one that can come from prayer. And I'm super thankful for it. And so if there's something that you could put on your to-do list, I would say to be praying for that. Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us.